So for this North African coastline, though, things will be calming down. 15 degrees as a top temperature there in Tunis, the winds easing and the rain pulling away. The rain's not going too far, though. Here it is over the northern coastline of the Mediterranean. Heavy downpours there from the eastern parts of Spain all the way across towards Greece. Torrential downpours here. Very strong winds as well, but those winds won't quite be as strong as those that we're currently seeing. Now, I want to take you across towards Pakistan and Afghanistan and the northern parts of India, because here we've seen a lot of rain and snow. And as you can see from these pictures, it really is very murky at the moment. There's a lot of fog around. Now, this very wet weather is going to stick around here as we head through the next couple of days. It's going to be very wet once more, and the snow really very, very deep, particularly as you'd expect in the mountains.
Qatar Airways, world's 5-star airline.
Thanks, Steph. Still ahead on this news hour, hundreds of homes are destroyed by landslides wreaking havoc in Bolivia's capital, La Paz. And standing up against impunity, the people suffering amid Mexico's rampant murder rates.
Qatar, as independent as you are.
14 competing teams, 13 different venues, 3 host nations. Cricket is part of the fabric of life here, and this competition is the pinnacle of the one-day game. We'll be bringing you all the action and reaction from India, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. The Cricket World Cup on Al Jazeera.
Welcome back. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Forces loyal to Muammar Gaddafi appear to be advancing east into areas held by the Libyan leader's opponents. Residents of Brega claim they've now repelled an attack by pro-Gaddafi fighters. There are also reports of air attacks on nearby Ajdabiya. Thousands of refugees trying to flee the violence in Libya are stranded at the country's border with Tunisia. The UN's refugee agency is warning of a humanitarian emergency that will only get worse if more help doesn't arrive. And the Pakistani Taliban have claimed responsibility for the killing of the country's Minister for Minorities. Shahbaz Bhatti had called for changes in the country's controversial blasphemy law. Middle East markets are racking up more losses on Wednesday, with concerns political unrest could spread to Gulf oil-producing countries. Saudi Arabia's benchmark Tadawul al-Share index has dropped about 4% since the start of trade. A day after slumping almost 7%, its worst one-day decline in 2 years. Dubai's benchmark index has also slid about 4% to a 6-year low on Wednesday. Qatar's stock exchange index has also slid almost 3% since trading opens. Another news, Tunisia's Prime Minister is due to reveal a constitutional council on Wednesday. The interim Prime Minister, Al-Baji Qaid Al-Sepsi, will name those tasked with rewriting the constitution ahead of elections. The interim government was set up following the ouster of President Zine El Abidine Ben Ali. In Yemen, hundreds of protesters are rallying in front of Sana'a University this Wednesday, demanding an end to the embattled president's 32-year rule. A senior Yemeni cleric, Sheikh Abdul Majid al-Zindani, has become the latest high-profile figure to join the anti-government movement. The Yemeni president has hit out at Israel and the United States, saying they're behind the unrest sweeping the country. Pro-government groups have also rallied in Oman's capital, Muscat. They were there to voice support for the ruler Sultan Qaboos. It comes after violent clashes in the northern industrial city of Sohar that are thought to have left a number of people dead. Thousands gathered in Bahrain's capital on Tuesday as part of ongoing anti-government rallies. Protesters marched peacefully, though, through Manama. The government allowed the demonstration to go ahead after a heavy-handed crackdown more than a week ago. Iranian security forces have fired tear gas and clashed with anti-government protesters. Thousands poured into the streets of Tehran and other cities chanting slogans against the government. Protesters are calling for the release of opposition leaders Mir Hossein Mousavi and Mehdi Karoubi. Now to Côte d'Ivoire, where the United Nations says around 60 families were blocked by armed men from leaving a church in a suburb of Abidjan. Thousands have been trying to flee the violence in Abobo district caused by days of clashing between those loyal to the sitting president Laurent Gbagbo and supporters of Alassane Ouattara, the opposition leader. The UN says there are reports of dead bodies littering the streets, burnt-out buses and buildings, and people being attacked in their homes. Several dozen people have been killed during a week of violence. The UN says conditions are dire, with supplies of food, water, gas and petrol running low. Almost 30,000 people have fled over the border this week. Well, the United Nations, meanwhile, is investigating claims that Belarus supplied attack helicopters to forces loyal to the incumbent president Laurent Gbagbo, violating a weapons embargo placed on Côte d'Ivoire. Meanwhile, records of air flights between Belarus and longtime ally Libya show Belarus may also be supplying Gaddafi with arms. From the capital, Minsk, Neve Barker reports.
Impoverished and isolated, Belarus's authoritarian regime is under mounting international criticism. If the reports of supplying helicopters to Côte d'Ivoire are confirmed, Belarus risks escalating the conflict in a nation already teetering on the brink of civil war.
There are several Belarusian arms companies with links to the state. Prior to UN sanctions on Ivory Coast in 2004, at least one BSVT housed in this anonymous building in downtown Minsk sent a shipment of helicopters to the country. Some of those helicopters also ended up in neighboring African states.
As the UN tries to confirm its claims, international monitors in Côte d'Ivoire report being fired on near the airfield where the helicopter shipment is believed to have arrived. Minsk strongly denies any involvement.
We never delivered any strike helicopters to Côte d'Ivoire, and Belarus, as a responsible member of international community, respects and honors the Security Council decisions.
The controversy has drawn attention to Belarus's relationship with Libya, another country Minsk has regularly supplied with military equipment. According to the EU's weapons delivery watchdog, on February the 15th, before the UN ban on arms sales to Tripoli, a plane believed to be carrying weapons flew from Baranovichi military base in Belarus to Seba airport in the Libyan desert, a transit point for weapons heading to sub-Saharan Africa from Eastern Europe.
In regard to Côte d'Ivoire and the suspect flights into Libya, we sent out a warning to the global humanitarian community on Monday, just telling them to take extra care now that they're rushing humanitarian aid into these two countries, to avoid using the very aircraft